Marco Rubio's had a busy week, but today he's on cleanup duty. He's at the Vatican, where he met with Pope Leo XIV, the first American pope, for more than 2 hours. Their private meeting comes amid unprecedented public attacks from Donald Trump against Pope Leo, who has been outspoken about the church's opposition to war. Whatever lame excuse Rubio came up with for Trump's bizarre obsession with attacking the Pope over and over and over again is just the latest humiliation for the Secretary of State, forced to navigate Trump's daily reversals on the status of the war with Iran. Here's what the New York Times says about Trump's latest rhetorical shift and how it underscores, quote, how treacherous it is to speak for a president who cultivates a bombastic and erratic style, one that Trump insists keeps his adversaries off balance. Quote, in this case, however, he appeared to be throwing off balance his own Secretary of State, who also serves as the president's national security advisor. We're back with David and Congressman Hines. I mean, David, I don't know what kind of pumping up you have to do of Donald Trump to think that these are rhetorical shifts. I've covered him for 9 years. These are just blurts of instinct and impulse, and I think some fear coming out on his social media platform. What do you think?
Well, I think he's used to intimidating and blustering his way through life. And for years and years and years, politically in the United States, he was able to get away with that quite a bit because in the Republican Party, he didn't have any real opposition. He could intimidate and bluster his way through domestic American politics to a degree that, quite frankly, has surprised me over these last 10 years. Like, you just bully your way through politics. He's now learning that you just can't bully your way through all of life, that people do resist and that people do have actual convictions and beliefs, like Pope Leo. You're not going to be able to bully the Pope out of his stance regarding the Pope is going to push towards peace. That's what he's going to do. You're not going to be able to bully him out of that. I don't think there's any amount of cleanup that Marco Rubio can do that will change the Pope's stance on this war. I mean, the best he can possibly do, I would say, is use whatever influence he has with Trump to dial back the temperature, because the one thing we know for sure is that this Pope is not going to stop talking about peace. That is what he is going to do. And it's obvious it has flummoxed Trump. It is obvious that he is now encountering people, he is now encountering institutions that are not yielding to him internationally. They're not doing everything he asks. And it's very clear that when that happens, he doesn't have a plan B. His plan B is just to go back to plan A, except louder and more angry. And that's just not going to work.
And what about Marco Rubio? I mean, I think you were on covering the Rubio press conference with our colleagues. I watched with a little bit of amusement that he seemed to really rise to the two roles he has. He seemed to really relish being behind the podium. It was a very crowded, it's a smallish space, but the briefing room was packed. And I was just telling the congressman story. I was at home and I saw the New York Times headline flash that Trump had reversed himself on the very policy that Rubio had been out there, with a puffed up chest and some well-rehearsed lines in front of a bathroom mirror or something. He'd made a fool of him like 110 minutes later. What do you make of Marco Rubio?
Yeah, this is the classic calculation that Republicans have been making for 10 years. He's in all likelihood, he's thinking to himself, A, he's very frustrated that he was just contradicted, but B, he's probably congratulating himself on navigating the Trump administration well enough to be in the positions of power he's in, to influence power in the way that he can. This is the bargain Republicans have been making for 10 years. And when you talk to Republicans, they'll say again and again, well, you should be glad I'm there, because if I'm not going to be there, somebody worse will be. And this is the way they have accommodated themselves to Trump for a very long time. But it's at such a high price. And part of the price is your dignity. Part of the price is that you're going to be humiliated by your own boss again and again and again. But here's what's interesting. In this moment where Trump is acting erratically, where he's contradicting his subordinates and he's lurching from policy to policy, in a weird way, amongst Republicans, Rubio's star is rising. They see him as the most eloquent defender of the administration, and J.D. Vance's star is falling. They do not see him as being a similar ambassador for Trump. So it's a very strange situation. On the one hand, Rubio is being contradicted by his boss all the time. On the other hand, his star keeps rising. It's a very strange place to be. I
mean, MAGA is a strange tent to be under in the first place. We didn't talk about probably the most important party in this, and that's Iran. I mean, Trump is erratic in a way that we've just started covering the frequency of the overnight posting, the lack of sleep he's obviously getting, the lack of cohesion between his top national security advisor and the president. The Iranians see all this too. I mean, what is sort of the intelligence suggests the Iranians are thinking about America right now?
Well, I'll tell you, you don't need the intelligence to inform you on this matter, right?
Just watch their Lego videos.
Well, look, the Iranians, as hideous as their regime is, these people have been negotiating and outwitting people in negotiations for 4,000 years. And, the idea that they don't look at the fact that Donald Trump changes his rationale and his objectives, and he's announcing that peace is at hand, but by the way, I'm about to start bombing again. The Iranians look at that and say, we are now in charge because we have a consistent strategy of keeping the Strait of Hormuz closed, which is creating immense pain in Asia. And by the way, for Americans, you think the Iranians don't understand what $1.50 a gallon gas increase means to Americans? They understand that. And so don't believe for 1 second the way the stock market believes that, just because Donald Trump announces that the war is over, the market rises 600. Baloney. The Iranians are in charge right now because they control the Strait of Hormuz and United States gas prices and world food prices. So we are in for a long haul. And Donald Trump is going to bluster. And the more he blusters and backs down and changes his mind and contradicts himself, you're worried about him contradicting his Secretary of State. The man contradicts himself twice a day. Right. The Iranians see we are now in charge.
You made a side comment, but I'm just curious. Why do you think the markets and CPAC are the only two institutions that believe everything Trump says?
It's mind-boggling to me, and it's a confident. Oil prices go up, the market goes down, the market and vice versa, right? And that is what is driving Donald Trump right now. Eventually, he's taking a very bad deal because somehow, even though he doesn't give a damn about Republicans in the Congress, he only cares about his own political standing. At some point, he's going to look at his polling numbers and say, holy smokes, I need to bring gas prices down. And that's when the Iranians say, that's fine, you're taking this deal. And Donald Trump says yes.